Start. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Mindshift. I'm Dimitri Wakov, your host, and Mindshift, as some of you know, is my video blog, which the main purpose is to help you make atomic shifts in your mind so that you live your life with more prosperity, more love, more understanding, and more fulfillment. Today, we have the topic of compassion. This is one of my favorite topics, and some people who work with me know that I'm using compassion a lot in my leadership trainings, leadership coaching, and in general in my coaching and in my life. Compassion has been a very big part of my life for the last 5, 6 years, and I really believe that is one of the main reasons of my growth from that point on. So I really am looking forward to talk to you about it. But I have someone who is here with me who I'm sure can share a lot of things about compassion and a lot of things about how to use compassion not only in our organizations but also in our life, in our personal life, in our relationships with other people, with ourselves. So Rose Mina, she's a psychotherapist, she's mindfulness teacher, she's a mentor, she's a corporate trainer, she's a therapeutic trauma informed yoga teacher. She teaches at the Center for Mindfulness Studies, Center for Mindful Self-Compassion, University of Toronto, Union Yoga, several organizations, and is a managing director of Mindful Wellness. So many things, and compassion is almost everywhere there. So I see how compassion is at the heart of what you do, Rose Mina. And I've been a training with you. We finished it like 6 months ago, and I was so happy with that. So many changes with me afterwards. So we are going to talk about compassion. We are going to talk about how compassion impacts our life and relationships, how to use compassion in our daily life. Let's start. So welcome, Rose Mina, to
Thank you.
Mindshift.
Yeah, happy to be here, Dimi, and good to see you
Yeah,
again.
thank you. Yeah. So, do you want to share something more about yourself before we dive into the topics?
No, I think we're ready to go. You said a lot.
There are a lot of things. I didn't say all of them, but there are so many more. But I think people are gonna see um, how much of you embody compassion, because that was that's the main reason why I invited you here, because for me you're an embodiment of compassion. And tell me briefly how you were introduced to that and why you decided to work so much with compassion.
Hmm. Yeah, good question. So I have been an insight meditation practitioner for a long time. Um, I started out with MBSR 20 plus years ago, and after learning about mindfulness and yoga in that MBSR course that I took here in Toronto, um, I just became interested in meditation and insight meditation in particular. And I started to, after many years, once I was ready, started to do these retreats. And I happened to be at Spirit Rock, actually, where I learned about mindful self compassion. It was new at the time. It was a new program that Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer had begun. And in speaking with some of my teachers, I was going through a lot in my life. I had a corporate job that was very stressful. I was in technology and finance, and I had had a lot of displacement in my family. I was an immigrant to Canada. Had faced some racism, some oppression and marginalization, and so I had a lot of effects in my body, and it was showing up in chronic pain, bulging discs, and some body pain that I was experiencing. This would impact my mobility. So that's how I started practicing meditation. And when I went to this retreat, in speaking to a teacher, they kind of pointed me towards mindful self-compassion, and they recognized that there was a part that was still missing for me. And when I started taking the course, I took the course with a couple of teachers here in Toronto at the Center for Mindfulness Studies. It really changed me. It shifted me a little bit more in the direction of being more compassionate towards myself. That's the part that was actually missing. I was doing a lot for others, but I wasn't doing so much for myself. Mindfulness alone um, gave me the strength to kind of speak my own truth and be able to share my voice with the world. And then self-compassion took me that little bit further that I needed to get.
Wow, great story. I mean, it's always how to say, we always have these interesting stories when we how we met something, and very often it's about when we had a very hard time. That's what I can notice, and we meet something, we meet some concept, we meet some tool, we meet some something which is helping us to really get out of it, and then we teach people how to do it. It's really great when I hear that and this kind of story. So tell me, the first thing we're gonna cover is what is actually compassion, because I don't think that people totally understand the concept of compassion, and it's especially, I mean, I'm in Eastern Europe, and I will tell you that here people can't understand at all what it is, and they see it as something soft, something which is not for strong people, especially for men, and they just when they hear it, they don't want to talk about it. So, what is your definition of compassion?
Yeah, another good question. So compassion to me is a recognition of suffering that's present or difficulty, challenge that's present, with the wish to alleviate it. So some say when love meets suffering and stays loving, it becomes compassion or loving kindness. And compassion actually is one of the four abodes of the heart, four kind of found in from Buddhist philosophy. That's where the sort of theme of compassion, I guess, originates, and where it influenced the founders of this program, along with clinical research. And so, compassion is about being with suffering with the wish to alleviate it. It's not, some people confuse empathy with compassion. So, empathy is sort of putting yourself into the shoes of another person when they're suffering and feeling that pain and suffering. And it is the kind of precursor to compassion. But compassion is a little bit different. So, when we talk about self compassion and relational self compassion and being in compassion in relationships in the world, connecting, interconnecting with the world. What it looks like is having some kindness and understanding towards ourselves as well as others, and meeting suffering with care, both care for ourselves and care for others.
Yeah,
So it's not a formal definition, but this is kind
I
of
know.
how I see it. And it, when we look at the myths of self-compassion, sometimes we talk about the myths of compassion is weak, or self-compassion means I'm selfish, or um, it means I'm going to just take everything and not stand up for myself, or it means I won't be motivated. Compassion, we treat others often with compassion. We treat others with kindness when they're suffering. But we don't give ourselves that same kindness. So we're hard on ourselves. We have an inner critical voice that we may have internalized from society, from how we are seen in society, how maybe what we experienced in our families, how we were treated as young people amongst perhaps parents who didn't really know how to act in this way, how to behave in this way. They were just struggling to survive, perhaps. And so we don't realize that we can offer this to ourselves.
Yeah,
And research has actually found that when we are compassionate towards ourselves as well as towards others, we actually can make mistakes and fail and not beat ourselves up about it, not activate that critical voice as much. And that means we will try again. That means we will actually eventually succeed.
Yeah.
So failure is not the end of the world. Mistakes are not the end of the world. We also admit to our faults, and we recognize that we're human and we're interconnected with other human beings. So Thich Nhat Hanh teaches about this as well. He talks about interbeing, and that's the Thich Nhat Hanh and Plum Village community is another community that's influenced me a lot. And they don't explicitly talk about compassion. They talk about mindfulness in everyday life and engaged mindfulness, engaged Buddhism. And that is compassion in action, an ethical conduct, doing and saying things that we can actually believe in and we feel good about, and we know are kind and respectful towards other human beings. This is compassion in action.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it is. It is, and actually, you already went to the topic we have, the second topic we have, which is compassion and self-compassion. And that's great. That's great because I think this is the place where people very often don't, how to say, they don't, they believe that they are compassionate, but as you said, they are compassionate towards others, not towards themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big key here because what would be my question here is not like maybe make the distinction, but how do you see, is there some way people can really understand the difference of being compassionate towards others than themselves, or other way around? Can you share something around this? I hope you understand what I mean by that. So just because I think this is a big confusion for people, you know, but people say I'm compassionate, but no, there is something you're missing. As you said, you are missing something there. So how can you distinguish these two, in a way?
Yeah, so one way is by asking the question, how would you treat a friend if they are suffering? What words would you use? What tone of voice? What gestures, body language, and so on? If your friend comes to you and says, I made a mistake, I failed, I did something wrong, and I feel badly about it, I feel very guilty, what would you say to your friend? Contrasted with when you make a mistake, what do you say to yourself? How do you treat yourself?
Yeah.
Because often we operate under these negative core beliefs that we have developed from a very young age. I'm wrong, I'm bad, there's something unlovable about me, I'm not worthy, these kinds of negative core beliefs. And these also come as messages from society, from certain um, environments we've been in often. And they can be unconscious, sort of under the surface. We don't even know they're there. And so, in order to start to see ourselves as full, capable um, human beings with agency, self compassion can really help with that. We can recover from mistakes. We can maybe learn how to access our inner compassionate voices, and also to befriend our inner critic because it's trying to keep us safe. So in our efforts to be part of the tribe, to not be abandoned by family, society, friends, we try to keep ourselves contained in a particular way. And we are very hard on ourselves. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We motivate ourselves with fear. And fear activates our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system. We go into fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Yeah.
When there is fear, a fear of how I'm going to be seen in society, fear of being ostracized, and that impacts our view of ourselves. Whereas if we approach ourselves with compassion, with kindness, first it's recognizing suffering is here. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling unhappy. I'm feeling guilty or afraid. Just recognizing that, that's mindfulness. And then we go to, I'm human. I know my friends go through this. I know others in my community go through this. I am only human. So, and then the next step is kindness. How can I be kind to myself? How can I approach myself as I would approach others when they are struggling?
Yeah.
And when we
Yeah.
learn that we are actually being hard on ourselves, we start to recognize that, and um, we're kinder to ourselves. That makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There is this part of common humanity, which was for me the very important part, because when we're in these moments of suffering, as you say, or moments of failure, but suffering, but especially I'm just talking about failure because it's often when we are in these moments, we believe that we are alone, right? We believe that's the only us who had in fault or something. We don't do something in the right way, or we make mistakes, and the part of common humanity is really helping us to realize that that's not true. All of us are in that. We every single day we feel like this, maybe for a small amount or big amount of time. It depends of what happens during the day, but this is very important. And later we're going to talk about tools we can use in order to work in this direction. But let's go towards the third topic. You already start talking about that, but let's focus now on that. It's about uh, what is the impact of compassion. You already shared some things, but can you yeah, just you could say, some people would say, but what is the practical application of that? I mean, okay, we are taking care of us, we use the common humanity and mindfulness and kindness, but how is that practical for us as people in our daily life and at work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the impact of compassion. So, if we can learn how to accept or create a kind of sense of space, uh, like a gray zone, an allowing of whatever is present. So if we are not sure about something, if we are feeling doubt, if we are ashamed about something or embarrassed about something, when we can approach that, or if we're resisting feeling something, because often when we have feelings, we resist our feelings. We resist feeling what we're feeling, and that gets us into trouble, um, because it just lingers, it persists, it can turn into something bigger. So we learn how to be with whatever is going on, whether it's a mistake, whether it's a conflict in a relationship, whether it's something that maybe in the workplace goes against my values, and I need to somehow figure this out, reconcile with it, or stand up for what I believe is right. Right. So we often encounter these kinds of situations in the workplace, and in our personal lives, where we think, well, I'm not going to be liked if I speak up. Um, there's also two sides to self-compassion and compassion. One is the softer side, and the other is the fierce side.
Yeah.
Right. So it also means engaging, taking actions, making decisions to alleviate the suffering for ourselves or others, setting boundaries, knowing ourselves enough to know this is according to my values, this is not according to my values, and this feels right or it doesn't feel right to me. So that's
Yeah.
part of it as well. Um, Also, we tend to relationally um, get along a little bit better with others. We're not as hard on some of the people that we would otherwise be hard on. we're maybe a little bit more understanding overall. Because although we are more compassionate towards others than we are to ourselves, we still have like that reactionary
Yeah.
mind with our closest people. You know, that can
Yeah.
happen. Or in the workplace, if you're a manager, if you're a leader, you're going to react because you feel so much pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
And alleviating some of that pressure means having a better relationship, treating others with compassion, understanding, learning from the mistakes. That also leads to a better leadership quality and a better environment to work in.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So,
And I just wanted to share something about it. Thank you for sharing that about the fierce self-compassion of the soft one, because people see compassion as very soft sometimes,
mm,
but it's not. Definitely, there are two sides of it, and for me, compassion is um, when you are compassionate towards yourself or others. Doesn't mean that you are nice, because some people see it as just nice guy or something, or nice girl. It is more. I see it as more. Um, I really see your suffering. I know that you suffer, but in order to stop the suffering, sometimes you need to take actions, and sometimes these actions should be done right now, not staying just in a place of okay, everything is good. And you need to be gentle to yourself, which is part of it, but it's sometimes you need to just stand up and do stuff,
mhm,
and but not saying like from the inner critic side like you are nothing, you are not enough, that's why you should do it, but not from a place of I really care about you. I really believe that you have the potential to do stuff, but in order to do that, and for your own good, you need to start doing it. You need to start
absolutely.
taking actions, and this is a big compassion. It's not only for yourself, but as a leader, as you said, when you're in the organization, you also care. When you're compassionate, you care for your coworkers or your employees, and you want them to and your organization to thrive. And sometimes you need to have this tough love talk, which is part of compassion,
Hmm.
that okay, I see your potential, but I know that you need to take some actions to really reveal that potential, otherwise you're gonna stay there.
Hmm.
And I remember one of coach which I was working with, he was talking about his sometimes how he fires people not because of something else, but he's compassionate towards them and towards himself, that he's seeing that they are not for the job. And this is again compassion. I'm compassionate that actually you are not feeling good here, it's not your place, so you can find your own place if this is not here with me. So it's all of this, and it's good to say all of these things, Rosmina, because I think people get more holistic view on that and understand that compassion can be used for all of these things if it's used the right way,
Hmm.
right? So that's how I see it. And about prosperity, I just want to share. If you have thoughts, also you can tell me about prosperity, because a lot of people talk about prosperity. I want to be prosperous, and I realized that actually, what is prosperity is because people connect it with money very often. I am prosperous. I have a lot of money, which is part of it. But in general, prosperity is you are successful in something, right? You just get prosperous in whatever you do. And I think compassion can be a great key for that. That's what I realized, is because compassion combines the idea of I know where I'm failing, that I'm going to be there for myself or for others. So we are not going to stop, but we're going to continue until we succeed.
Hmm.
But also compassion, and we know that in self-compassion book of Christian Neff, she is talking about that compassion, self-compassion and then self-appreciation. So appreciation is part of that as well. So if you combine that, when you combine these two, it becomes so strong too, to feel prosperous and successful and to keep going until you actually do it.
Hmm.
So it's a big shift for it was a big shift for me to realize how compassion can be very practical in this direction as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It can help you
Yeah.
to reach your your life the way you want to live your life. And prosperity and happiness are not just about money, right? There's
No.
this happiness index that came out actually this past weekend, And it talks about a lot of different things, like how much well-being do we feel? What kind of resources do we have? Um, how do we relate to others in our communities? Um, do I have what's important to me? If I love nature, can I make more time to go and spend in nature? How do I want to treat others? How do I want to be treated? Like, these are all questions that we can ask, right? And when we are motivated by kindness and compassion, and we can motivate others similarly by not feeding into their negative core beliefs, by not criticizing them, but by working with them and having a dialogue and understanding where they're coming from as leaders, that makes all the difference.
Absolutely. So let's talk about practicing compassion now. So how to practice compassion on daily basis? Because yeah, it's we definitely see the results. We see also the reasons why we need to be compassionate. But then comes the time when we need to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that we have the results. It's not just I'm compassionate from now on. Everything else will come. So
Yeah.
can you share some practices which we can do every day or
Sure.
weekly so we enhance the compassion in our life?
Yeah, yeah. So often we talk about the informal practices that can be very powerful um, in cultivating compassion. And both mindfulness and compassion can be practiced informally. So, for example, when you are drinking your tea or washing the dishes or um, making your breakfast or something like that, brushing your teeth, you can actually pay attention to the physical sensations of what you're doing as you're doing it. Often we are distracted by thinking about something, or we're listening to something in the background, and that's fine at times. But if we can pay attention to what we're doing as we're doing it for a couple of minutes a day, because we know we're already going to be doing that activity, that already starts to turn the mind towards presence.
Yeah.
And we can notice when I am suffering, when I'm having a hard time. Maybe I spilled sugar all over the counter. So am I going to be hard on myself for spilling that sugar? Or can I just take a pause and say, hey, I'm rushing. I'm nervous about something. I'm human. We might even place a hand on the heart, or we might just take a breath and acknowledge, this is what's happening right now. Let me pause and let me just see what is here, what's arising for me now. That can take an instant. So the hand on the heart is a physical gesture of compassion, but we can also incline towards ourselves with kindness. So in everyday life, noticing moments when we are suffering and also savoring the moments when we are happy, content, cultivating gratitude, joy, starting the day with a happy song, ending the day with a happy song. Um, I attended some sessions with Lama Rod Owens recently, and every session starts with an upbeat, joyful music at the beginning, and at the end, they have a lip sync dance party. And it's
Yeah.
beautiful because
Wow. Yeah.
you've talked about vulnerability and grief and suffering, but you want to also cultivate joy and gratitude and connection. Know what you need in the moment. So you can ask yourself the question, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? What am I grateful for? What else is possible here? Can I reach out for support if that's what I need? So those are like very informal ways. Um, Offering yourself the kindness, knowing that you're not alone, that maybe there's someone else out there who experiences something similar. Could I reach out to a friend? Those are
Yeah.
acts of compassion. Then there are some formal practices like giving and receiving compassion, I find really helpful during these times that we're in. So, for example, you might feel helpless knowing that there's a war going on, knowing that there's violence in certain cities and countries, knowing that oppression exists. All of these things that are happening in the world, can I breathe in compassion for myself and breathe out compassion for whoever is suffering and needs it? And recognizing that I can't change what's going on, perhaps overnight, but I can do some small thing that will help others and help myself. Maybe I can raise money. Maybe I can educate someone. Maybe I can just offer my compassion into the world, and that's enough. So practicing giving and receiving compassion, loving kindness. How can I be kind to myself as well as others? Um, Knowing that your mentors, your teachers, actively naming who your mentors, teachers are who have offered you compassion, and really knowing they're with you when you step into a meeting, or um, you're an activist of some kind, or you're a teacher, or you're a podcast presenter. You know that your whole lineage is there with you, all of your people who have supported you. And then you are giving back. In that way, you're giving back to others.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I really agree with that, and I see the importance of that. Rosmina, and it's just is so great to hear it. For me, even the simplest thing like touching yourself on the face, or maybe just holding your hands, sometimes is a great way to just how to say, start the process and keep the process actually during the day, because suffering is all around us all the time. Not all the time, but almost in every
Mm-hmm.
situation we might have something like this. So as you said, I think it's very important people to understand that they can savor the good and be compassionate with the suffering, and if they do it on daily basis, they're going to see a big difference in their life
Mm-hmm.
several months ahead, sometimes even several days ahead. So just before we go, I just wanted to ask you, do you have some, um, you know, people would maybe want to ask you some questions, connect to you. What's the best way to do that with you?
Sure, sure. So I do have an email address they can reach me at. I have a blog site as well where I post all of my. Um, I try to be regular with my posting, but I post some workshops I'm doing, articles I've written. I'm also currently, I've been doing research, qualitative research for a peer-reviewed book and article that's coming out on mindfulness and compassion for healing and processing racial trauma. So I've got a
Yep.
book coming out on that. And then I'm also doing further research as well in the fall. So I've got a lot on the go, and I've got some articles out and so on. So you can go to my blog site, which is roseminamunjee.com. There's a
Okay.
contact form in there, or you can reach me at mindful@roseminamunjee.com if you have questions. If you are looking for a resource, I'm happy to help.
Cool. That's great. So thank you for sharing all your wisdom. I mean, it's not all; it's part of your wisdom, but definitely it was very, because I mean, for this time we cannot get everything, but we can get the substance which people can see how much you can. Compassion is so important in our life, and it can help in our personal life, personal relationships, success in life, prosperity, everything, which is important for us actually. So before we go, we just share with one sentence what you want to leave people with.
Mm. Um, I want to say every little bit of practice being in compassion helps. Every little bit. You don't have to jump into the deep end of the swimming pool. I always say you can do step by step, drop by drop. Just turning your attention towards compassion, towards kindness, fierce or gentle, soft compassion. Both are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosmina, and really thank you for today, and have a lovely, lovely week.
Thank you
Bye.
so much, Dimi. Wonderful.